Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. When my son was born, I thought I'd finally found the missing piece of my life. Holding him in the hospital room, I felt a rush of pride I couldn't describe. My wife, Emily, looked exhausted, but radiant, her hair clinging to her forehead, her eyes shining as she whispered, "We did it." I kissed her hand and told her I loved her, and in that moment, I believed every word. The weeks that followed were sleepless but beautiful. I changed diapers, paced the floor with a crying baby in my arms, and went back to work with dark circles under my eyes. Every night I'd crawl into bed beside Emily, whispering, "We'll get through this together." She'd nod, smile faintly, and drift off. But somewhere between midnight feedings and early morning shifts, I started to notice cracks. They weren't obvious at first, just small moments that left me unsettled. Emily would leave her phone face down on the table. She guarded it more than usual, even in the middle of the night. She'd laugh at texts she wouldn't explain. When I asked, she'd brush it off with, "Just friends checking in." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe everything was fine. After all, we had a newborn. Stress was part of the package. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it grew quietly in the back of my mind. One evening, a few weeks after we brought the baby home, Emily's best friend came to visit. They chatted in the kitchen while I rocked the baby in the living room. I overheard just enough to feel my stomach tighten. Her friend said, "Have you told him yet?" Emily's voice dropped, sharp, urgent. "Keep your voice down." When I asked later what they were talking about, she shrugged. She was just giving me advice about sleep training. I tried to push the thought away, but once suspicion takes root, every little thing looks like proof. At my son's first checkup, the doctor commented on his striking features. "Strong resemblance to you?" she asked lightly. I laughed awkwardly and said, "I think so." Though in truth, I wasn't sure. His hair color was different. His eyes didn't match either of ours. I knew genetics could be unpredictable, but still, the thought gnawed at me. Nights grew longer, and trust grew thinner. I began noticing Emily sneaking calls late at night, stepping into the hallway with hushed tones. If I walked closer, the conversation would end abruptly. She always had explanations ready. Too ready. That's when the idea hit me. I didn't say a word to her. I didn't accuse or confront. I simply went online and ordered a DNA test kit. It arrived in a plain box, small enough to tuck away in my desk drawer. I felt guilty even touching it, like I was betraying her by daring to question. But guilt was nothing compared to the weight of doubt. A week later, when Emily took a long shower, I carefully swabbed the inside of my son's cheek and sealed the sample. My hands shook as I packed it, labeling it with a number instead of a name. I tucked it under my coat and mailed it at a drop box across town, far from curious eyes. The wait was torture. Every day felt like a lifetime. Emily noticed my distance, asking if I was okay. "Just tired," I'd say. She accepted it, though her eyes lingered on me longer than usual, as if she sensed something she couldn't name. During those weeks, I thought about everything we had built together, the years of dating, the vows we exchanged, the home we created. I thought about how we decorated the nursery together, painting the walls pale blue while she hummed to herself. And I wondered if any of it had been real. Finally, the email arrived. My heart pounded as I clicked it open. The words blurred for a moment before they sharpened into focus. Probability of paternity, 0%. I felt the world shift beneath me. I sat frozen in my chair, the sound of my son babbling in the next room piercing the silence. My hands trembled as I scrolled through the report again, hoping I had misread it. But there was no mistake. The child I had been raising, loving, and protecting was not biologically mine. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I just sat there staring at the screen, while the weight of betrayal settled over me like a lead blanket. That night, when Emily handed me the baby and kissed my cheek, I looked at her with new eyes. Every smile, every word, every touch felt rehearsed, like a performance I had failed to notice until now. I forced myself to act normal, to cradle my son gently, even though my mind screamed with questions. Who was the father? How long had this been going on? Did her best friend know? I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I began watching more closely. I noticed the names that popped up on her phone. The late-night absences she disguised as errands, the guarded tone she used when someone texted her. Slowly, pieces of a puzzle I never wanted to assemble began sliding into place. And then, one night, while she slept, I checked her phone. What I found there made my chest tighten, not just because of the affair, but because the messages revealed something even worse than I had imagined. I didn't breathe for a full 5 seconds after the screen opened. Her home screen looked harmless, an album of baby photos and a to-do list that said, vitamin drops, diapers, pediatrician at 2. Then I noticed a folder named Utilities that wasn't there last month. Inside, next to the calculator and weather, sat 2 apps I didn't recognize, and a notes file titled with a single emoji, a tiny lock. The note wasn't a diary. It was a plan. It started innocently enough, feeding schedules, a shopping list, questions to ask the pediatrician, scroll. The handwriting switched to bullet points under a header that made my skin tighten. Stability plan. Keep M on birth certificate. Use his insurance through the first year. Derek can't add the baby to his plan until later. Risky. Amicable separation after leave. Child support locked. No DNA talk. He won't check. My name reduced to a single letter, like I was a variable in an equation she was solving for someone else's future. I forced myself to scroll further. A pasted screenshot of a text from an unsaved number. D. You're sure he won't do a test? E. He's loyal. He won't. He worships the baby. D. Keep him as the legal father for now. Cleaner. I'll make it right later. My throat went dry. Another thread, longer, with a contact labeled Derek. Work. Not even a pretense of distance. Derek. Insurance billed? Emily. Yes, through his plan. We're covered for now. Derek. Good. We avoid questions at my place. Emily. He asked about the eyes today. Derek. Say your grandfather had them. Emily. He did. He also had honesty. That last line hit like a cracked bell. I scrolled again. Hidden album. 4 photos from a cabin I'd never visited. Emily in a beanie by a fireplace. Emily holding a mug. A blurred shot of 2 hands, hers and someone else's, on a table. And a selfie taken in a mirror with Derek's jacket hanging on a chair behind her. The timestamp was 7 months back, 2 weeks before she told me we were so lucky finally. It would have been easier to slam the phone down and wake her up with 100 questions she'd answer with 1,000 excuses. Instead, I kept reading, not because I wanted more pain, but because I needed the whole picture before I painted my exit. Buried in the Files app, I found a PDF labeled Hospital Forms PDF. I opened it and stared at a blurry scan of the acknowledgement of paternity the hospital gave us after delivery. My name. A signature that looked like mine but wasn't. A date and time I wasn't even in the room. I'd been with our son in the nursery while they checked his temperature. At the bottom, a witness signature. I blinked at the name. Alyssa Park. Emily's best friend. I took photos of everything. Then I stood in the dark, the house humming around me, and decided I wasn't going to bleed out in the kitchen while she slept. I was going to move. At 8 the next morning, I called a lawyer. Ms. Hart didn't gasp or moralize. She listened and asked for what mattered. Chain of custody test? I had the pharmacy kit. She wanted the official one that courts recognize. Good, she said when I told her I'd scheduled it. We'll petition to disestablish paternity inside the window. Don't confront her. Freeze exposure. Separate finances. Notify your insurer before they accuse you of fraud for claims you didn't authorize. Then we preserve evidence. Send me copies. Do not touch the originals. Insurance fraud? I asked, still behind the curve of my own life. If you're not the father and she knowingly billed your plan naming you as such, or forged a signature, the insurer will want to fix their records. That protects you. Don't use the word fraud, use mistake. And let their investigators choose the stronger word if it applies. I sent Ms. Hart the photos and forwarded the test appointment confirmation. Then I called my insurer. I didn't accuse anyone. I told them I had received new information and wanted my file noted that paternity was in dispute pending a court-admissible test. The representative's tone shifted to careful. She placed a hold on any future additions and promised to escalate a review of the AOP document. Next, the hospital. I asked for a copy of any paternity acknowledgments signed in their facility and recorded the call with the automated consent message ticking in the background. When the clerk emailed a copy, I printed it, laid it beside a sample of my real signature, and took a photo of them together. The resemblance was close enough to fool a stranger, just off enough to infuriate a husband. I wasn't interested in a showdown. I was building a record. That afternoon, while Emily napped with the baby, I found the rest of what I didn't want to find. A group chat, Village, with Alyssa and Derek. Alyssa sent heart emojis and advice, but also wrote the line I can still hear. He'll make a great legal dad, even if he isn't the dad. You need calm right now, not chaos. Emily replied, I hate myself. I love this baby. I love both of them in different ways. I just need time. Derek replied with the efficiency of a man who wants solutions, not ethics. Time isn't free. Keep him on paper. That was the moment the deeper betrayal assembled itself. It wasn't just the affair, it was the decision to turn me into a resource, insurer, provider, shield, while privately planning an exit that kept me paying for a lie I wasn't allowed to question. I didn't rage. I went to the pharmacy and bought groceries like any other Tuesday. I fed my son, who reached for my hand with that little open palm babies have when they trust they'll be held. I cried later, when he was asleep, quietly enough not to wake him. 2 days later, I met Ms. Hart. She had already drafted the petition to disestablish paternity and a request for a temporary protective order around my finances. I'll file the petition after the lab result lands, she said. In this state, you have a tight window to rebut the presumption if you're on the certificate. The forged document helps you, ironically. Don't accuse the notary friend yet. Let the hospital's compliance team do that. What about the other man, I asked. Not your problem, she said. But if he's her boss, as your screenshots suggest, HR will make it their problem. I recommend you don't deliver it yourself. Send a preservation letter to the company's general counsel. They'll handle it, and send a courtesy packet to his spouse if he has one. Through your attorney, not from your personal email. No theatrics. No theatrics. That became my mantra. The chain of custody appointment came on a gray morning that smelled like rain. I told Emily the pediatrician had asked us to swing by a lab to check something small. The technician swabbed the baby while Emily hummed a lullaby, unaware of what the cotton tip meant. My stomach twisted at the deception, but then I pictured the plan in that notes app and steadied my hands on the counter until the wave passed. That evening, I wrote out 3 letters with Ms. Hart's help. One to the hospital's records department, requesting a review of the AOP with a claim of potential signature irregularity. One to my insurer, memorializing our phone call and asking them to note the dispute formally. One to the general counsel of Derek's company, enclosing screenshots with dates and a simple statement. Please preserve all communications and records relevant to potential code of conduct issues between employee Derek W. and employee Emily W. from dates. This is not a lawsuit. This is a preservation notice. I didn't hint, threaten, or editorialize. I let the attachments do the heavy lifting. The result came back faster than I expected. A sealed envelope. I opened it at the kitchen table, where we once opened baby shower gifts and argued about paint swatches. Probability of paternity, 0.00% again, this time stamped with the Chain of Custody Labs letterhead. Finality in 12 digits and a period. I forwarded the result to Ms. Hart with a single line. Proceed. Now I had to tell Emily I didn't plan a grand reveal. I invited Alyssa over to help with the baby and asked my brother to stop by to bring the car seat we loaned him. When everyone had arrived and settled in the living room, I placed the envelope on the coffee table, sat across from Emily, and spoke in a voice I barely recognized. I ordered a DNA test, a legal one. It's in this envelope. I've read it. I want you to read it too. I slid it forward, her face drained of color. Martin. She didn't reach for it. You insisted we were lucky, I said. We are lucky. Lucky that the truth can still be written down. Alyssa put a hand on Emily's shoulder. Maybe this isn't... Alyssa, I said without looking at her, your signature is on a hospital form that says I acknowledged paternity at a time I wasn't in the room. We'll sort that out with the hospital, but do not finish that sentence. She removed her hand. Emily opened the envelope. The paper trembled, her breath trembled more. When her eyes found the percentage, some final mask slipped. She didn't cry. She set the paper down and folded her hands like a defendant waiting for a sentence. Who is the father? I asked, though the phone had already told me. She swallowed. Derek. Your boss. She nodded. Does his wife know? She closed her eyes. No. HR? A shake of the head. No. Insurance carriers? Her hands unfurled. I didn't know how to fix it. You knew how to use it. The words came out flatter than I felt. The room was very quiet. My son fussed, and my brother picked him up gently and carried him to the kitchen, whispering to him about measuring cups and wooden spoons like they were toys from another planet. I love you, Emily said, eyes shining and broken all at once. I love him. I love the baby. I didn't plan to hurt you. I panicked. I chose what looked like the smoothest road. Smooth roads end at cliffs too, I said. I'll fix it, she whispered. I'll tell HR. I'll tell him. I'll fix the forms. You'll tell the truth, I said. Fixing is what you asked me to do for years. Truth is what I'm asking you to do now. She nodded, stunned into obedience by a tone I'd never used with her. Alyssa stared at the floor, cheeks hot with guilt. I stood. Here's what happens next. Tomorrow you email HR and ask for a private meeting. You disclose the relationship and request reassignment. You contact the hospital to correct the record. You notify the insurer that you listed the wrong information and give them my lawyer's contact. Then you tell Derek's wife, not because I want drama, because she deserves not to be the last to know. Her eyes filled. He'll fire me. Maybe. Or maybe he learns what accountability feels like. Either way, he's not your problem anymore. And us? She asked, so small I almost didn't hear. That's part 3, I said. And it won't be written in a notes app. She pressed her palms to her eyes and nodded. One small movement, the first honest one in months. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was angry. Anger had burned off hours ago, but because the house seemed to be adjusting to a new weight distribution. Rooms felt different when you stood in them. The air felt tired, like it had been carrying secrets on its back and finally set them down. I walked into the nursery and watched my son sleep, chest rising and falling like a metronome set to the tempo of forgiveness. I don't know if forgiveness will ever visit this house again, but truth had, and it brought enough light to see the floor. In the morning, Emily sent the email to HR with me standing beside her. She wrote it herself, in plain language, like Ms. Hart advised. Then she called the hospital and requested to speak to compliance. She didn't stammer, she didn't spin. She told the truth and gave them Ms. Hart's contact information. After that, she looked at me and asked for one last mercy I hadn't prepared to answer. Will you be here? She asked quietly. When I tell his wife? Not to speak for me, just to make sure I say it all. I thought of every version of myself I could be. Judge, executioner, ghost. I chose witness. Yes, I said. I'll be there. She exhaled like a diver breaking the surface. By noon, HR had replied with a time and a location. The subject line was corporate and bland. The kind of bland that means the building knows there's a fire in it and would like it contained in a conference room. I forwarded the appointment to Ms. Hart with 3 words. Part 3 begins. And that was the moment I understood the title I would give this chapter if my life were a book. I thought I was just learning who the father was. What I learned instead was who everyone was, my wife, her friend, her boss, and most importantly, myself. Tomorrow could hand me anything. Separation papers, apologies, new arrangements with names like custody and support attached. But tonight I owned something no one could forge, a spine that wouldn't bend to plans that spelled my name with a single letter. The conference room was colder than the rest of the office, like the air conditioning had been turned up to make people uncomfortable on purpose. Emily sat across from me, her hands folded in her lap, knuckles white. HR was there, a woman in a navy blazer with a notepad open, pen tapping lightly. Derek sat 2 chairs down, his tie loose, his face pale as if the blood had drained out the moment the email landed in his inbox. Emily spoke first. Her voice wavered, but she forced the words out. I need to disclose that I entered into a relationship with Derek while he was my supervisor. I understand this violates policy, and I accept whatever reassignment or consequences follow. Silence followed, the kind that tells you the room is shifting. HR wrote steadily, her expression unreadable. Derek tried to speak, but Emily cut him off. And I misrepresented paternity on medical forms. That's been corrected. My lawyer is working with the hospital. Her voice broke on the last line, but she didn't stop. HR nodded slowly. Thank you for your honesty. We'll be in touch regarding next steps. That was it. No lecture, no drama, just the corporate guillotine sliding into place. We walked out together, but the distance between us felt like miles. At the elevator, Derek tried to catch her arm. Emily? She pulled back like his touch burned. Don't. The doors opened and she stepped inside with me. Derek stayed behind, shoulders slumped, already shrinking into a cautionary tale. That night, Emily sat at our kitchen table with a stack of papers. I spoke to Ms. Hart, she said quietly. She explained everything. Custody, support, the petition to disestablish paternity. I'll cooperate, I won't fight you. I studied her face, the same one I'd once trusted with every secret. Now it was a stranger's, worn and weary, stripped of masks. You had a chance to keep the truth safe, I said. You chose to bury it instead. She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. I know, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life. The divorce moved quickly. HR reassigned her, then quietly phased her out. Derek was gone within a month. Alyssa avoided both of us completely. Emily moved into a small apartment near her sister's. I kept the house, the stability, and most importantly, custody of Lila. Weeks later, I saw Emily at a cafe when I dropped Lila off for visitation. She looked smaller, older, like someone who'd been carrying stones too long. She tried to smile at me, but it faltered before it reached her eyes. Driving home, I realized revenge hadn't been the binder, the DNA test, or the emails. The real revenge was clarity. She had gambled everything, our marriage, my trust, our future, thinking I'd never check. I did. And in doing so, I learned not just who the father was, but who she truly was. Now, when I look at my daughter, I don't see betrayal. I see resilience, honesty, and a future built on truth. Emily has to live with the mirror I left in her locker, the DNA test I slid across the table, and the silence that followed her every excuse. I don't hate her. I don't even wish her harm. I simply don't carry her anymore. And that is the ending she gave me. The ending she never expected when she thought I'd never check.